Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Well, Caps back in action on Thursday. Sabres in DC. Nicholas Backstrom's 1000th NHL game. We'll break it all down right here, right now. Caps Hockey Review. Let's go. And we're off and running once again on Caps Hockey Review. I thank you for joining me. Well, the Caps were back in action on Thursday night, and it was a special occasion. Nicholas Backstrom is playing his 1000th game in the NHL. Him and Alex Ovechkin are the only two players in history to have played 1,000 games for the Washington Capitals. So this is a big night. This is a really special night. We've seen in recent, seasons, teams are starting to do it. They did it big for 1,000 games, sure, but it's going even bigger now. Like we've seen it. I think it started with Sidney Crosby. Everybody wore number 87 in warm-ups, and we saw the Caps do that for Nick Backstrom. Everybody wore number 19 tonight. The other thing, they roll out T-shirts, masks. It says Nicky with 1K in the middle of it. Pretty cool. Like whoever came up with the design, that's some good work. I think that's great. Now, what else could you want on your 1000th game night? You get the silver stick, you get tribute video, you get the GM on the ice to congratulate you. Your family's there with you to enjoy it. What else could you possibly want? Well, how about a win? As we'll see, that was a little bit too much to ask for, I suppose, because the Caps did not win this game and they did not look good in this game. Now, one could point to the fact that the Sabres are an easy team to look past. Well, that may be true, but what we're seeing with the Sabres, especially since the trade deadline when they, pretty much offloaded anybody who's on an expiring contract, they're looking better. And maybe it's because there's no pressure on this team. They know they're not going to the playoffs, but sports seems to love these spoilers. And what I mean by spoilers are these teams that aren't making the playoffs, they don't really have a lot to play for, but it's a great opportunity to make those teams that are fighting for their playoff lives, it's a great chance to make their jobs just a little bit harder. And that's what the Sabres did to the Caps. They the Sabres don't necessarily stack up skill-wise with the Caps on paper, but the paper doesn't play the game. The players play the game. And I've said this before, hard work beats skill when skill doesn't work hard enough. Think about that for a second and let it really sink in. You can have all the talent in the world you want. The problem is everybody has to work hard. Everybody has to want it. Everybody has to be pulling on the rope in the same direction. And we didn't see that on Thursday night. In fact, we saw just about the opposite. I think the only player that really stood out to me as doing something good, well, I'll say two. Anthony Mantha is looking pretty good as a Cap. 2 goals, 3 points in 2 games. Pretty solid start for him. Otherwise, John Carlson. John Carlson had 2 points and was not a minus on Thursday. I believe the only Capitals player that was not a minus on Thursday night. Wow. For a guy who's a defensive liability. Wow, he's really bad, isn't he? No, he's not. Well, what does this mean? Wow. It doesn't really mean a ton. It means a little bit though. This Capitals team, as I've said before and as we've all kind of seen, they have trouble with these these lower teams in the standings. Now, maybe it's just an off night. They're playing a lot of hockey, but So is everybody else. The bottom line here is that success is not guaranteed, victories are not a given. You got to work hard every night. And until they start doing that on a consistent basis, we're going to see games like this where you should win. It's Nicholas Backstrom's special night. What what more motivation do you need? It's Nicky's 1000th game. If nothing else, Backstrom's 1000th game. Everybody in that locker room should want to send him out tonight with a win. It can't be that difficult to get up for games. It just can't. The reason why you're playing hockey, all these guys, they wouldn't be playing professional hockey if they didn't love the game. So there's none of this, oh, well, maybe they're just bored, maybe they're, not interested. They have every reason to be interested. They're playing the game they love for a living. They're being paid very well to do it. I'm tired of this. This team isn't interested. This team is bored. This team just is flawed. I'm sick of this nonsense and this narrative that it's okay for teams to just take the night off. And I get it. Game 45 of the season against Buffalo doesn't exactly turn your crank, doesn't exactly start the motor for you, but the fact that it's Nicholas Backstrom's 1000th game, I would think would be enough for this team to get on the right track here. And clearly it wasn't. It was bad from the opening faceoff. It really was. The Caps were outshot in the first period. They managed to tie it up on an Orlov slapper, but the second period Caps. That's what they are this season. They are so good in the second period. They dominate the league in goal differential, goals scored, shots taken, offensive zone time, possession time. They dominate offensively in the second period. And what happened? The Sabres flipped the script. They wiped Washington up and down the ice. They scored 3 goals, one of them being shorthanded. And in this situation, Vitek Vanacek struggled. I don't know. Maybe having Samsonov behind him and rotating with him kind of keeps him on his toes, but or maybe it just got mixed in the schedule for him. I don't know, but he did not look good. He looked very uncomfortable in the net. His rebound control was all over the place. This is a problem right now. I said this before. It's all these little things are very, very important this time of year. And the biggest thing that's important is effort. And that was very clearly lacking on Thursday night. Now, what does this mean for moving forward? Well, Sabres series is done now. So we're not going to see them the rest of the year. In fact, like the schedule's getting a lot harder. It really is. We're going to see the Islanders a few more times. That's going to be a tough one. Got the Penguins 2 more times. That's always going to be a tough one. You've got Boston a couple more times. That's a wild card game. It might go the Caps' way. It might not. It's been that way all year. There's a lot of big games in here against pretty much anybody they can see in the playoffs. If the Rangers find a way to sneak in, there we go. But this is a chance now to kind of measure yourself before the playoffs. What are you against the Islanders? What are you against the Penguins? What are you against the Bruins? It's time to find out. Now, this is a lot of excitement and a lot of potentially getting worked up over nothing here. But for right now, until I see otherwise, this Capitals team has some work to do. I get it. It's a far cry from where I was after the Flyers game. I get it. I kind of, my opinion changes as it should. This team has to do all the right things, all the little things right every single night. That's how you win the Stanley Cup. That's how you win in the playoffs. There are no nights off. There are no, oh, well, we just didn't have it tonight. Just was a tough game. That doesn't happen. That doesn't work. That's not an excuse. Now, in the playoffs, Sometimes the bounces don't go your way. Sometimes games don't go your way. I get it. That's going to happen. But what should not happen, what should never happen, is this apparent just lack of effort. That's the most frustrating thing here. It's not that they lost. That's a part of it, but it's not all of it. It's a very small part of it, to be very honest with you. The biggest part here, the biggest frustrating part for me and every other Caps fan, because we've seen this for too long, just the apparent lack of effort. You got to show up every night. It doesn't change. The expectation for every team in this league that is in the playoff hunt, you show up every night and you work your butt off. Now, this isn't going to sit well with Laviolette. I'm sure it didn't. I'm sure he was very pissed off and he had a lot to say to this team afterwards. This is a team that is going to be defined by what they do in the playoffs. I've said this countless times now. We don't care about regular season stats for the Capitals as long as they make the playoffs. If they miss the playoffs, yeah, we'll dig into regular season stats, but this team is judged on what they do in the playoffs. This team is expected to make the playoffs. This team is expected to go deep in the playoffs every year. That's how this team is built. That's why they're trading away draft picks for players. That's the whole point. When you get to the end of the line, when you're done making the playoffs and you have no draft picks to show for it, yeah, they'll have one cup to show for it, but that's a lot of draft picks given up for one Stanley Cup, I got to tell you. There's there's a lot to be desired right now. And maybe this is just sour grapes, maybe this is just a passionate fan's overreaction, but recent history in these last 2 years would say I'm not so overreactive here. The Caps have not won a playoff series in 2 years since they won the cup. Think about that. Think about how long ago that Stanley Cup win feels. That was the last playoff series this team won. Yeah, yeah, it feels like a long time, right? Because it is. This team has to find a way in the playoffs. And I can tell you, these last 2 years watching this team, it's been up and down, the same as it's been most of this year. It's up and down. The problem in the playoffs, as we saw it 2 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago in that Carolina series, they were up, they were down, but ultimately when it came to game seven, they lost. Now, they had a built in excuse. We won the cup last year, we just ran out of gas. Okay, fine. Move on to next year. They got absolutely flattened by the Islanders. That was not a series. That was the Islanders. That was a sanctioned ass kicking. The Islanders just had a pass to wipe the Caps up and down the ice for 5 games. That's what it was. The Caps snuck in one good game in there, but that was total domination by the Islanders. If this is going to stop, if this team is not going to get trounced in the first round of the playoffs, the effort has to be there on a consistent basis. That's my point here. Effort is everything in hockey. You can have all the skill in the world you want, but if the effort's not there, you're not going to get the result you want. So, this team has the Flyers on Saturday, and then they're going back to back. They have the Bruins on Sunday. They need, obviously, they need wins here. They need to beat the Flyers. They need to not get in their heads. They just need to get past this Sabres game. Hopefully, game 1001 for Nicholas Backstrom might be a little more memorable. And I'm not excluding Nicholas Backstrom from this tirade, from this whatever you want to call it, simply because it was his 1000th game. He didn't look great out there either. None of them did. But again, it's your 1000th game. It's your good buddy's 1000th game. It's your teammate's 1000th game. Whatever he is to these guys, some of these guys, all of these guys, seems like a pretty likable guy. I'd say he's probably just about everybody's good buddy in that locker room. You got to get up for this game. Now, they damn sure need to get up for this Flyers game. The Flyers are still struggling, still trying to find their way. This is a team you need to beat. As far as the Bruins go on Sunday, again, potential playoff opponent, first round. This is going to be a big game as well. Every game is big from here. Every game's been big for the last, half season. It's a short season. Every game counts. The points matter. How easily it can get away from you in a short season, it's amazing. So I think it's extremely important for this team to stay on this right track and get back to where they need to be. So what do they need to do? Well, we saw the bounces start going their way against Boston and Philadelphia this week. They managed to score a couple goals against the Sabres, but let's throw this Sabres game out the window for a sec. Because there's nothing really to take from that. It was just a bad effort game. The big thing they need to get back to, like we saw in Boston and like we saw in Philadelphia, the effort has to be there. Every minute, every shift, every period, whistle to whistle, buzzer to buzzer, the effort has to be there. So that's what I'm going to be looking for these next few games. Hopefully they turn it around. Hopefully we see a great game on Saturday morning. Hopefully we see a great game Sunday morning, and we can put this Sabres loss behind us. I really, really would hate to come back on here and have to say that, well, that Sabres game, that's where the snowball started rolling, and now it's just picking up momentum down the hill, and we're back where we were a couple weeks ago. So that's what I'll be looking for. Hopefully you'll tune in then. And hopefully we'll have some better things to discuss. Hopefully it's better than this one. We'll see.